Everything we know, from people and ants to stars and galaxies to quarks and atoms, the entire universe, might just be a simulation running inside a supercomputer inside an even bigger universe. Ancient philosophers said that the universe is a dream that we're waiting to wake up from. In this dream world of the imagination, anything is possible. All cultural items, from the dreams of our rodent-like ancestors, to books, to television shows, are merely permutations of the reality we think we live in. Today's age of computers and video games places simulations at the center of our cultural consciousness. A select group of us perform simulations for fun and profit, and we call them games, role-playing and otherwise. We live to run simulations. Join us on the Simulationist podcast as we explore our culture of simulation.
Okay, hello once again. Welcome to the Simulationist podcast, iteration 68, and we're recording this on the 22nd of December, 2013.
So Merry Christmas Eve?
Merry Christmas, happy belated Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa whenever that happens. Happy Saturnalia, happy Yule.
Post-Yule celebrations.
Happy solstice, happy everything to all the people. And happy New Year's. No, actually, we will be recording another one by New Year's, so.
And a very Merry Festivus.
Actually, to be honest, you're probably listening to this even later than that, because that's often what happens. So.
That's okay. We're still wishing it upon you.
Yeah, of course.
So, yes, what's been going on with you this week, Josh?
What's been going on with me? Well, I was sick for a couple days out of commission, but so I didn't get a lot of, extra stuff done. Although you'd think being sick would
Well, that's only if you get a
time.
chance to stay home that you manage to get more fiction into your system.
True. Well, I did play more Minecraft. What did I do? I did a bunch of little details on my barn and stuff. Well, not a barn. It's a stables, like part of the whole castle. Working on the stables section area of it. One of the things that I'd been kind of criticized for, like one of the comments I got on my video was, I basically made like a square, like it was a very square building. It was a square out of dirt, so it's very boring. So what I've been working on is trying to make it more interesting.
But wouldn't that be just like the example of perfect, like architecture and sculpture in Minecraft? Is I took all these blocks of dirt to make one gigantic block of dirt?
Well, of course, yeah. I mean, I think that's wonderful. I'm not that ashamed of making a square, but at the same time, I thought, well, let's see what I can do about that, and let's see what little things I can add to it. So I've been adding like. Hay bales are a little help, especially in a stables. They're a very good decoration tool. The cauldrons, and you fill them up with water. They look like
horse troughs. Yeah, for water.
Yeah, and lots of fences. I found I might be doing this too much, but I found that just placing fences in odd places, like up high on the walls and stuff, kind of adds. It feels right to me, so I'm like, okay.
It does have a nice artistic flair.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the flying buttress, but it's a nice design feature.
Yeah, in some ways I feel like it's kind of dumb, like just to put, here's a fence up on the wall somewhere for no reason. But
you could wind up arguing that anything but a monochromatic basic style is kind of dumb because you don't need it.
True, yeah.
And yet having that second color to break up and enhance a pattern style really does make it look good.
Yeah, I will say. I mean, why build a castle out of anything but dirt?
Because I have so much cobblestone, I have to do something.
True, actually, yeah. Cobblestone's probably, once you get mining and stuff, cobblestone is probably more common than dirt.
Oh, trust me, it is with me. I've got so many boxes of it on my...
When you build with it, do you cook everything up first and make everything out of stone or stone brick?
Mostly these days. I find I like the pattern of the brick better than the cobblestone.
Yeah.
And when I'm backfilling in like the cave systems, because I got to get rid of the stone somehow, I wind up utilizing the solid stone that's being baked solid once again, as opposed to just filling it in with cobblestone.
Okay, yeah.
It looks more natural, and you know what? I got the time. I've got the coal. Why not?
Why not?
I get experience off of cooking it that way, so I can wind up using that for enchanting.
Yes, you can. Do you have an enchanting table?
Yeah. That's what I managed to do this week.
Let's move on to you. Sure, why not?
I found some cows just north of where I was living.
Yeah.
Brought them back, and then I started, raising and butchering them. So I got bookshelves, which meant with a book I was able to utilize some of the many blocks of lava I have to make obsidian. Got the diamond pickaxe. Next thing you know, I have myself an enchanting table.
Wow, very good.
So yeah, I've got that up on the very high end, up on the light side of the world.
Yeah.
That said, enchanting I've always had a bit of a nitpick with in that you can't choose your enchantments.
True. I've heard a rumor that may be changing in 1.8, the next version of Minecraft that they're working on.
I'm okay right now with the enchanted books style. Although at this point I don't have enough books to spare, I'm still making more bookshelves to surround the whole thing with.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so there is that factor to put in for me right now. But it's like I'll get to level 25, I'll go up and I'll enchant 3 or 4 picks just so I can try and get the silk touch, and I don't get silk touch.
I think you need level 12 at least, I think, to even have a chance at silk touch.
And trust me, I'm blowing levels out the wazoo for this, because I can gain levels. I just pick up a bunch of food, I feed it, all of a sudden I got a lot of pigs, all of a sudden I got a lot of cows, I got a lot of extra sheep, slaughter them all down. I got chickens sort of thing popping up. Although I've noticed I am getting rather angry at the current system, because every time I come down, a bunch of random jungle cats appear. What did the jungle cats do? Try and kill my chickens.
Oh.
How do they do that? Well, they appeared randomly within the fence.
Yeah, that's true. You can't have chickens on grass in a jungle without
a double layer fence. And it would be nice if you could put a dog in there and just have a dog prevent the natural spawning of jungle cats.
Actually, yeah, that's not a bad suggestion. That's a good thought.
Well, I mean, it makes dogs a little bit more useful. I mean, cats keep creepers away. Creepers run away from cats.
Yeah.
That's why you have a cat with you, is to prevent creepers from sneaking up on you.
Yeah, you could have a whole paper, rock, scissors dynamic with, creepers run away from cats run away from dogs, and then dogs could run away from creepers. It'd be the perfect circle.
It would be very interesting, especially because, once you get a few dogs, you can start breeding them with all your zombie flesh, and all that.
Yep.
And then just have a huge dog pack whenever you want to go adventuring somewhere.
Well, you can do that, yeah, except...
And so this way you can't have a mixed dog and cat pack to protect you against creepers, because they'd be driving each other nuts and you'd wind up losing animals. And they'd be just...
Oh, yeah.
How dare you, animals.
Although, well, the way I play it, I've modified my game. The cats, you don't... When you tame a cat, they don't follow you.
Which is odd, because I've encountered a glitch where I've tried to get them to stop moving, and they follow me anyways. They just don't listen.
Yeah.
They follow me, and they won't say otherwise, and they'll just keep going, and it's like, I'm working with lava here, Pooch and Kitty. Could you please not try and follow me?
Yeah, that's another of the perennial problems with Minecraft, is the cats and dogs running into lava.
The only solution to that will ever be making sure that they're immune to lava, and that's just ripe for abuse then.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could code something into the AI about avoiding lava.
You can take the pets with you through portals, right?
Yes.
But nothing different happens. You don't, take a pair of dogs with you to the nether and you start breeding hellhounds?
No.
Oh.
That would be cool.
That would be a nice mod, then. There's an idea heading out there. Anyone who knows how to do that. Breed a dog in the nether, you come up with a fire-spitting hellhound.
Although, did you see that they added something also in one of the snapshots? They have baby zombie pigmen riding chickens now.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. It's really cool. I always thought, though, my initial thought to it, and my thought still, is that the chickens should be zombie chickens. Because if the pigs are zombies, the pigs go to the nether and become zombies, why don't the chickens go to the nether and become zombies?
I think that would have to be because the zombie virus is like the swine flu, whereas they're working up something like the avian flu to create vampire chickens.
Vampire, yeah.
They just slowly peck at you and they steal your health, like half a heart at a time.
There do exist models for zombie horses and skeletal horses.
Well, that's just because that's awesome. And then you find a way to tame your skeletal horse. Yeah. You get yourself a nice skin where you look like a skeletal knight, and then you're the biggest badass on the server.
Yeah,
that's how it goes.
I don't think it's implemented, but it's
officially
in the code. Yeah, yeah. It's there if people can find.
That's the thing is, technically, you can have giants in the game too.
Yeah,
they just don't do anything with them yet. They do get a little problematic when the giant tries to hop in a mine cart and they're just floating up above it because they can't really sit in right.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can kind of understand that. But I'll be happy when they're there. You're just wandering through the forest and all of a sudden, fee, fi, fo, fum. You come, face to toe with a giant. And that would be a nice, fun encounter, I think.
I wanted to, another thing just to share, I have been watching the Mindcrack UHC Ultimate Hardcore Challenge, something like that. It's like I don't know what, it's just a contest between, 10 or 15 guys who play Minecraft, like on their own YouTube channels, and they just get together and they have the one event. It's survival challenge. They fight each other, PvP.
Okay.
And they, you start out with nothing. They're divided into teams, so they sort of work together.
Or they should work together.
Yeah.
There's one thing I've learned about, a friendly fire campaign. It's should work together. It doesn't always equate to do work together.
Yeah, exactly. So I guess, that's one of the things I've been wasting time on. I guess. That's
not
sort of
wasting
what
time.
this whole
You're
segment
studying
is.
it.
Well, for sure, yeah, for sure. And of course, anytime you're watching TV or watching YouTube videos, it's always educational. I always say that. It doesn't matter what it is. If you're enjoying something, it's because your brain likes it. It's because your brain.
So when I went back and I watched the music videos for the Spice Girls, was educational?
I think so. Yes.
I will admit I was kind of surprised at missing their songs. It's like, wow, I would much rather listen to a little bit more of this on the radio as opposed to the current Top 40 selection.
Yeah.
But apparently they're not old enough to be on any of the classic stations, and they're not new enough to get proper rotation on the Top 40 hits.
I think I hear them every once in a while. You do, but...
Well, you hear just like the one or two songs. They had some nice ones that never really made it a big and happy. But, it's a fun music video, and it's a decent song.
Which song? The Spice Girls?
I can't recall. I was just clicking on one.
Okay.
I haven't seen this music video. Haven't seen that one. I think I recall this one, and it's just clicking on it, and it's like not bad stuff. So that was educational, eh?
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, sometimes they put the new stuff like by the big artist or whatever, and it's like not that great. I don't.
Well, it was good for like a summer hit. It's a good high energy one, but their better ones are they're more low energy, calming songs. I remember one by Joe Walsh. Like everyone knows Joe Walsh for some of his classic songs, but the one I really like is I think it's the Ashes, the Rain and I, and it's just a really, really slow, almost morose song, just very sad, like what you'd imagine someone to be thinking on a rainy day as they're depressed, and it's just a very nice song. But I'll never hear it on the radio. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, well, I guess when I'm listening to the radio and a slow song comes on, I change the channel. Like I don't like slow tempo anything
and yet
on the radio.
And that there are some really good songs.
It's
slow
good.
Tempo. Like what's his face? He did Kojak. The TV for the TV series, Telly Savalas.
Okay.
He did songs too, and everyone, I suppose, from that era remembers, "Who Loves You, Baby," with a really rockin', in the background, flute playing there as he just grooves and jives, and that's a good song. I won't deny it, but he does some very slow ones, some very sad ones that would just utterly grip your heartstrings.
Okay.
But you're not going to ever hear that on the radio. Not even in the hits of the 70s when he was the hot stuff and he was appearing on Time magazine covers and everyone wanted, like him to do a cameo on their TV series. That song wouldn't get.
Well, I'm kind of not surprised with the radio because you can't. Well, it's hard to play slow songs on the radio because somebody might be like, you're always thinking who's turning on the radio right that second and immediately turns it off when they say, oh, it's just something boring, don't want to listen, not exciting, So you're
And yet for an entire year, Celine Dion's "My Heart Will Go On" would not leave the radio waves.
True, yeah, I don't know why.
Well, that would be because of Titanic. I guess it was such a big one that it's like, oh yes, this is the Titanic song.
And I guess the instinct of DJs and stuff is to say, no, I don't want to play that. It's too slow, or I don't think people will like it. But what happens with that song
ultra mega hit of the summer
is people like it and they call in, they want to hear it. So the radio.
Well, that's
plays
why Ghostbusters is still seen as a song you can hear on the radio from time to time.
Yeah, because people ask for it.
People have asked for it. I mean, it's usually around the Halloween season, but it's a good tempo one. And you know what? Despite the lawsuit that got involved as to who really came up with how much of what lyrics and beat, it's a pretty good song, and you can dance to it. So that's all most people care about. But yes, that was a bit of a tangent, I suppose.
Well, we honored the Spice Girls somehow. Oh, anyway, yeah. So yeah, I finished off what I was doing for the week. What else? Have you been doing anything? Other things?
Some other things. Playing the games, and I tried getting back into the Justice League game that I've been playing. Those who have followed some of the older iterations we've done, I was going on there. I was testing out the system. I was looking at the game, seeing how much I liked it or didn't like it, and I tried getting back on there, and I found the first very high barrier to actually playing a game. It didn't load initially properly the first couple times. So I was just trying to get back into it. I was like, okay, wait a half hour as it updates the files for the next thing. Whatever, I'll go, and read this article and then come on back. And I come on back and it loads up. And then I start to play and everything's paused. The music plays, but I can't move and there's nothing going on there. The game's crashed. And so, okay, Alt-Tab out, make sure it shuts down, and all that, and try again. Game crashes. And I had, right there, it's like, I have absolutely zero positive interest in the game right now. It's just the hassle of logging on was so problematic in 2 tries. It was like, I went from, I'll go in here, I'll give it a try, I'll run around, see what people are doing, see what people are saying in the the main chat, to, I don't want to see this game. I want to do something else.
Yeah.
And so that occurs to me that's, I suppose, the equivalent of a good intro on a book. You got to catch someone by like the first 5 pages of the novel, otherwise they're not going to be likely to say, okay, this is intriguing enough, I'll purchase it and go home and read it.
Well, it's almost like having the pages glued shut or something like that. Something like, do you remember, like, there used to be I don't know if this was always the case or just for a small period of time, but the way they used to make books is you used to have to cut the pages open. Like
yes,
when you got a book.
There was a period of that sort of thing.
Yeah.
That got, that was to prevent people from reading the entire book beforehand, I believe.
Okay, that makes sense.
But that proved to be so much of a hassle. It was like, DRM, but for books.
Well, yeah, exactly.
And so it went away because it was too much of a hassle.
So that's the sort of analogy I'm seeing. It's even before you get into the actual experience of the book. It's like, what do you actually do?
It would be like picking up a book and having it slip out of your hands. You try and pick it up and open it again. Oh, it slips out of your hands.
It's too slippery.
And so it caught me that if the loading up and just getting into the game doesn't go perfectly, I think you're going to lose a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's an interesting
Very
thing
important.
that I noted. I don't think it's worthy of like a proper topic or much for tangents. It's just this is incredibly important, and I had never realized it before. Whenever I used to load up WoW, occasionally the servers were full, but it's like, ooh, that means there's a lot of people on. When I get in, things are going to be happening tonight. Yeah. This was, like saying, like, no, you're not even playing the game tonight, buddy. No, you don't get a chance to play this wonderful game.
Well, the other life lesson there for content creators is it used to be you write a book, you put it down on paper, not much can go wrong. I mean, lots can go wrong at the printers or whatever, but it's very easy to be...
They only printed page 47, but they did it 250 times. That's my entire novel.
Well, it's fairly easy to be a content creator back then, But nowadays, if you're creating digital content, whether it's, it can be a ebook, or it can be a video game, or it can be a little app or whatever, it's very important to get those technical aspects right, or else people won't even be able to.
You could have a wonderful book written up, but if nobody can load up your PDF of it, no one's going to care, because it's I tried 2 or 3 times. It's I'm doing something else. This is proving to be too much of a bothersome. I just wanted to have a little fun.
Although, wouldn't you want to be the kind of content creator that people go to with so much expectation that they will literally spend that hour to troubleshoot to get to your content because they love it so much?
It would have to be something like an intriguing puzzle game. So it's before I can start my puzzle game, I have to solve this puzzle. And so in that case, I could see them getting into it. But for other stuff, I just wanted to play, run around as a hero and a villain for a little bit, seeing what was new and what was happening. If people liked the latest chapter that they've come up with, or I suppose issues, what they call them.
Actually, that'd be really... I like your idea with the puzzle, because imagine you write an ebook or something, and you don't charge money for it, or you do the whole pay what you want model. So people can, if they want, they can pay $0. So there's that. But you absolutely require, and put DRM and everything, and lock down you require that they solve some puzzle, or that they do some task.
So it'd just be like one of those 4x4 sliding block puzzles where there's one empty square and you got to rearrange everything, or would it be something like, here are 10 lines of code, what is line 11?
Maybe, yeah. I didn't think that far.
So how low of a bar do you want to set for this puzzle to actually get people in? I remember one from a game in the past where it was random letters, or what seemed like random letters, and that you could change the letters around, and every time you change a Z to an S, all the Zs change to S, and you have to work out what the proper sentence is.
Okay, yeah, sure, something like that. I think the thing that I want people to do is to waste time.
But how much time? Because if you're gonna have a mystery or puzzle sort of novel, maybe just a 5-minute challenge to get them, into the mood of there's puzzles going on in here, so you got to solve a small little one. But nothing that's going to take an hour, because not everyone has an hour to sit down, solve a puzzle, and then start to read.
I think I agree with you. An hour is too long. I might go up to 25 minutes.
Only for the final chapter, though.
I think at a maximum 25 minutes. Oh, yeah, imagine each chapter had one on it, like a puzzle lock on it.
It's a basic puzzle lock for everything except the final chapter when the whodunit is revealed, and then it's this complicated, I have to know, Perl programming to solve it sort of thing.
Oh, boy.
That could actually be an interesting twist, and that could get, I think, an aspiring novelist a nice little extra bit of notoriety. Might get featured on the news thing. So you like a good novel about puzzles, eh? Here's one to really catch your eye. And the next thing you know, hey, free publicity. Booyah.
Yeah, I think that could work. Maybe one of us will try that. Well, if we ever...
Well, that's an idea we'll throw out to anyone. Anyone who is bold enough to try it and good enough at writing puzzles and mystery novels, well, there you go. You do that for everyone you come across, then you become known as the author. Oh, yeah, he's the really puzzling one. You got to solve a problem before you can even start reading about the problems.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's how you get in. There's your little niche.
Although I should posit this question, though, and that is, there's the whole, crossing genres or multi-genre writing, and what effect that has. Because I think you are generally in favor of it. Is that if you can cross over, that's a good thing.
Well, it does allow contrast and highlights. It's like having 2 sets of lights on a stage.
But I will point out there's a con to it, in that, or con as in a bad aspect of it, as opposed to pros, in that you can be a master of one trade. If you work really hard at being a good novelist, you can get really good at that. But if you're working really hard at being 2 different things, novelist plus puzzle maker, maybe you won't be maybe both will be mediocre. I don't know. That might not be true.
That's why you get your second author in, so you're co-authored together.
Okay. Yeah, get another person to collaborate, another expert.
this person's really good at good word puzzles, man. He's done a few stuff before, and you know what? They were computer programs too. So I'll get him on in on this, and then he'll help me out with the technical aspects. I'll write the bulk of the true novel itself.
Yeah. Although I guess there's also the danger of the puzzle makers' fans being like, "Oh, these are great puzzles, but why would I read the book that comes after them? I mean, who needs that?"
It's a 2-for-1 deal. You got to be in on it.
You have to
read
the book to get the next puzzle, I guess, or something like that.
Or it helps you out. You know, it's like the word switch, the letter switching one around is it's like a quote from like a previous chapter, and so that if you've read the previous chapter, oh, that's where he says this, and the whole thing becomes a little easier to solve.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think I might have done, well, I mean, when you do, like, school, sometimes you do workbooks with, like, questions about comprehension of the book you just read. So that's something that I remember from elementary school, but...
Well, I remember a few books that start with, like, a quotation, you know, that's relevant to the chapter, or, you know, brings you back up to speed, sort of thing. And so, like, a small little 5-minute, you know, puzzle problem that involves something that was, like, in the previous chapter, this happened. So that way you could read a chapter and then, you know, go away for a week, come back. What happened? Oh, yes, I remember. This bit here, this is what's going to be important. I'll remember that as I'm reading this chapter.
Okay, yeah. So
that could serve to enhance, you know, the casual reader who isn't going to devour it all in, like, 1 or 2 days. So always like, what was happening in the previous chapter? Yes, I solved the puzzle, and that helps me up to speed now.
Although you've mentioned how you didn't like when sometimes they repeated things. Or was that how did that work? Yeah.
Sometimes I like how they don't repeat things, like a prophecy, and one person says it, nobody bothers to write it down, and so you kind of have to remember the prophecy yourself because it's not like they refer to it again later. Okay. They might make a mention of it. It's like, oh, this person is the falcon. But they don't say the entire thing again. Like, okay, so wait, was there 2 birds? What was the other bird? There was a falcon and there was was it a pigeon, a sparrow? Was it an eagle? I have to go back and read it. And that helps out because it's in a society where, no, you're told something and you kind of remember it because you don't write things down. That's how it goes. You just make sure to make sure you are paying really rapt attention when this is told to you. You don't just whatever, write it down. I'll come back to it later. But in this case, it's a nice little highlight, a nice little sampler of what the previous chapter was to help bring you back up. Yeah,
it makes sense. I remember
previously on the last episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it goes to like the relevant stuff that happens in the previous, so many seasons that are relevant to tonight's episode. Mm-hmm. So you're like, okay. Oh, yes, I remember that happening now. And then, you're back up to speed. And then you don't have to say, why did that happen? I remember that character, but why did he do that? It was covered in, the up to things. So that's the equivalent of the intro that they'll have on some episodes.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay.
So, yeah.
That's that topic.
So I think that's one really good idea for tonight already. And we haven't even discussed, like, the fictional or fiction-based news for the week.
Well, do you want to... What do we have?
Well, I think the first one that we do have to announce is that Wizards of the Coast has said 2014 summer. That's when D&D Next comes out.
That's the summer after this winter.
Yes.
Winter, spring, summer.
The next time it gets hot outside for a prolonged period, the books should be in the stores.
We'll have new books.
So remember, the books do tend to retail for about $40 a piece. You want to pick up all 3 at the right time. That's $120. So if it's about 6 months away, we'll say, save $20 a month, and then it won't be really expensive for you.
That's good advice. I think I might try this.
That's really good advice, because I got to say, there have been a few times when it's like, ooh, I really want to pick up these books, but ooh, I'm a real broke student. Well, I guess I really didn't need to eat healthy this semester. I'll just, go to one of those buffets where, it's supposed to be catered, and I'll steal some fruit and veggies there. I'll be fine.
It's like food or D&D books.
Well, healthy food and D&D books is the option. Yeah. There's always 3 for $1 ramen noodles. Boy.
Yeah.
Not actually healthy, but it keeps you from, feeling the hunger pains for a little while.
Right. So, do we have anything to say? I don't know. I'm looking forward to it.
I am looking forward to it. I like some of the style where it features like the first 2 editions. They had a nice classic feel to them, and this one manages to not successfully capture all of it, but a nice proportion that you can say, this has a bit of a classic feel to it. And yet it's still enough of D&D on its own stuff to say, this is still kind of new, and I think there's a lot of things I can do with this and play around with it, so it's not the same game again. So you really do feel like, although it gives you memories of the previous editions, you're not feeling like you're paying money for the same product that you've already bought. And so that's not bad. I kind of like that.
Cool.
I'm kind of intrigued to see what they're going to wind up doing for the art, for the cover book stuff.
Oh, artwork, yes, that's always
because the cover
good.
artwork is very important. I love the 2nd edition one. They got a barbarian busting down a door, and there's a rogue with daggers on one side, and there's a wizard preparing to cast a spell on the other.
Yeah.
And that's a really
adventuring party.
Yeah, that's really says this is about a kick-ass story I'm going to tell you, and we're all going to do it together. Whereas 3rd edition went with the photorealistic cover with the gems and all that, and if you turn that upside down,
like the magical tome, as if
and there was a lot of criticism about that. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I wouldn't say, I cover it up, it's so ugly. It just is what it is. You have some fun. You find the red gem, you turn the book upside down, you look in it close enough, and you can see the photographer.
Well, I remember that. And then, what they did with 3rd edition later on is they started to have covers with pictures in sort of a frame that was made out of the same sort of magical materials, like the gold and the gems and stuff.
The gold embossed work, and then
and there'd be like a picture of like Stormrack, like a
or
ship.
I think the Races of are a very nice example of that, where it's a nice image in the center. Whereas with 4th edition, they went back to this is a huge image on the front, and then we just got like the title up top, and then who wrote it down at the bottom. But by and large, it's just over top of one large picture.
It's like a big action scene usually.
Or at least like a few example races. So it's like, I want to be an elf. What's an elf look like here?
Right.
Okay. Their ears aren't big and pointy like you might see in anime. Oh, they've got a lizard-based creature. This is what the Draconians. No, they're not Draconians. Yes, they're the Dragonborn race. That's what they look like.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of the race, but it's a good way to present them, to put them right front and center.
And if I'm not mistaken, for the covers, they basically had Wayne Reynolds do a lot of the artwork, and he is an amazingly good, colorful, and detail-oriented artist. Yeah. To the best of my knowledge, he really doesn't do a lot of anatomy-breaking things, like you'll see where... I'll admit there was some stuff back in 2nd edition where it's like Strahd, the vampire from the Ravenloft thing, he's got a woman in his hands. But if you pay attention to her anatomy, not only is it unrealistic with a very low percentage of body fat, her spine might also be broken by how she's arced backwards with her head. She might be dead. He may have snapped her neck. So it doesn't have the, I'm taking this to be my unholy bride. It's more like, I'm taking out the garbage. This one's dead.
Well, that could be. Very well.
Yeah, but he was a bit more of an urbane villain. He wasn't the kind just to be killing people left, right, center. You really kind of had to tick him off to deserve a death. Or invade his castle. Then it's basically, okay, I'm just going to toy with you till you're dead now. But, so Wayne Reynolds, I've noticed he does tend to maintain realistic anatomy in that there's no broken bones, there's no dislocated hips sort of thing. And that's always nice to see. A person who is interested in the style. I've seen him with a bit of cheesecake, a bit of beefcake. But you know what? If he's given the beefcake, he's given the cheesecake in about equal measure. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, sure. Equal opportunity. I like both of those things, so it's all good.
Well, the thing is, I find it works if you want to show I'm the barbarian, and like who's wearing a loincloth and swinging a big axe.
Yeah.
Sure, you know what? You don't have anything on your chest. You're just running around effectively in underwear. Whatever.
Yeah, although I suppose, realistically, that barbarian wouldn't last very long against armored knights, but,
depends on a level difference, really.
In D&D, you can be 20th level and just run around buck naked and...
killing commoners. Why? Because, it's a rules variant on the insanity spell. Have fun. But yeah, the artwork, it was very nice in 4th edition, and although I know a lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about it, that was one of the highlights of 4th edition, was they had really good cover art and a really good front cover presentation.
Yeah, well, I would, yeah, 4th edition, I would say it's like, I don't know, B+ or A- level art. I remember there being, I liked the 3rd edition art better. Well, it might be just because that was my 1st edition, my initial...
Well, the 1st edition stuff was, let's say it had spirit.
Yeah, well, it looked like something that high school kids or
would doodle on his book. Yeah, it's like, okay, I'm going to draw this, and there's going to be a centaur here and a dragon over there, and there's going to be like a creature burrowing up from the dirt here. It's not horrible, and given the time, it was certainly on par with what anybody was expecting, but it lacked polish. It was a little goofy and kind of embarrassing in retrospect. It was like bell-bottom, pants sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well, but
it showed its age. It showed this was a product of this era of time. Because let's face it, the other fiction books really didn't have that much better for art either. And it was as, like the whole, D&D thing, rises up for the whole, role-playing game thing. This person does a really great cover. Everyone else has got to match that level. The artists for their novels and their books, they got to make sure they get a good front cover on there too. And it's a rising tide.
Yeah, well, it's an industry, and it's also just the fact that human beings are talented, and they can get, because we have these great artists. We should use
especially
them.
Thanks to Magic the Gathering, they've got so many people that are able to make a good, living on doing fiction-based art. Yeah. That then they can do really great works, and you can say, can you do the front cover of a book for me, by the way? And they just go, yeah, sure, here's my prices. And, they can afford to do that because instead of just working wherever they can find a job, they have that to fall back on. So thank you for buying Magic the Gathering cards if you're out there buying them. You are helping support a rising artistic portion of the game industry.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. The only thing I'll say about... No, well, I might say more, but this is a thing I'll say.
The core thing you have to say right now is...
The only criticism I have about great art is that perhaps it would be useful to have a few examples of art that your everyday dungeon master could say, oh, I could do that. Sort of like, because D&D ought to be... a democratic medium. It's a medium where anybody can be a dungeon master. Okay,
well, how about this? In the new player's handbook, what if they started off the chapter with players and all that with basically, just this line, scripture, quick art, doodles of what the characters are like, and then as you go through, the characters get more fleshed out.
Oh, that'd be so
cool. The armor
cool.
gets written on there until by the end of the chapter of, how to create a character, they're done in like lavish, painted, sort of thing, and they're all wonderfully illustrated. And then that shows the birth and the creation of the character.
I would love to see that. I guess it's hard to fit that into your core book because you only have so much space for art.
But it would be very memorable. That's the sort of thing where people go, I remember that and I really liked it. It helps show, like, when I'm just doodling my character, I'm just starting, man. This is just where my beginning is. I'll get better as I go.
Yeah.
So
and I'd like to see, I don't know, in D&D books, I don't know if they'll ever do this, but I'd like to see spaces for exploration. Like here's a blank space on this page to draw your character or whatever. I mean, you have character sheets for that, obviously, but I'd like to see, or here's a place to write in your own rule or your own notes.
Isn't that like the inside cover?
You can write
front and backer for. If it's like I have to put in this house rule sort of thing. So you write it on there and you put a reference note, and then on the proper page you put like a note in, like an asterisk there, and you note see inside cover note 1.
Well, yeah, I have my 3rd edition books are full of notes, and also I wrote in the errata. I don't know if this is the best idea, but when they published the errata, every time they published it, I would take a pen and go through the book and go to the margins, and where the errata applies, I would write in what the new rules were.
And this is why I really like the D20 system reference document for the hypertext one.
Yeah, because it can always change.
Because he did have it updated to cover the errata, so that it was always the best and the freshest, and there was no like, this has been updated to that. So long as it was part of the SRD, it was there and it was fresh for anyone to click for the hypertext link. Google it, by the way. It's got everything for that they've done for what's allowed official D&D.
Do you know that every couple of pages they would have like a sidebar or a behind the curtain or something that said like this author thought this about this game or this GM, famous GM, or they have little sections. I wish they had just blank ones, just like behind the curtain. Here's a space. Well, you get
yourself like odd-shaped Post-it notes.
Yeah, or like a little Post-it note or something like that.
Yeah. I do think it would be nice to have the notes, and I think that's what they're doing on 5th edition, is saying, do you want to change things? Here's what this rule effectively trickles down into in-game effects. So if you're changing this, be aware of these repercussions.
Yeah, those are good to have.
Which I believe is the thing, is they are making sure to make it much more modular design. Just like, okay, here's the basics. You want to change this. This is how it affects. You want to add this. It basically just slots in. You change things this way, that way. Bam, you're done. So I really like that prospect, and I'm really looking forward to see how it comes out. My only lamentation is that where am I going to put these new books, and how am I going to afford them?
Yeah, well, $20 a month starting now.
Well, that's the thing. That's just for the first 3 books, and there's going to be splat books coming out.
Do you make that much in tips?
I do. I can wind up paying that off with what I get in generic tips.
Yeah.
That said, most of the tips wind up going towards laundry anyway. So.
Oh yeah, because.
And I think that's a much more effective one. But if I just squirrel away $20 inside the cover of my 3rd edition Player's Handbook, then ironically, when I open it up, come the final day, I get, oh hey, here's money to replace all these books, and then I shelve it, in my storage area.
Now, have we heard anything about their policy on ebooks? Like, I'm assuming at this point you can't publish a book
without having at least an ebook equivalency.
Yeah.
They haven't said much about it. I'm really intrigued to hear what they're going to do for their equivalent of the SRD too.
Because I think, isn't it the case with Pathfinder that if you buy a Pathfinder book, you automatically own the
digital copy?
Yeah,
I think
that how
so.
That works?
Don't quote me on that, though. I mean,
okay.
Especially not in a court of law if you wound up downloading a lot of their books.
No, it might be a different company now that I'm thinking of it, but
it is a good policy that if you have a physical copy, there's no way we'll ever prosecute you for having a digital copy of it as well. That just keep your physical copies, in a storage locker, and then all you need is the digital ones. I don't see why anyone would want to get up and fuss about that.
Well, technically, like Wizards of the Coast, you have to, if you want the ebook version, you have to buy that too. Or at least that's how it has been.
They do ask it of you, and they have a nice team of lawyers. So.
Well, yeah, and it's the internet, so of course you can always find a place where somebody has just happened to scan the book or whatever. So, not recommending that, but that's sort of a reality.
That might also depend on where you are. I know for a while in Canada with stuff like cassette tapes, you could make as many copies of your cassette tapes as you wanted, and that was perfectly legal to have that. And just have your the actual one as the master copy, and then all your duplicates as your travel copies. It got damaged. Oh well, just make sure you record a second copy again.
Yeah, but you can't start selling or just you're not even.
You can't make a profit on it, but for personal use, it was completely allowable to. To even just tape the stuff off of the radio stations and then just make your own mixtape that way. That's completely legit. I do believe they changed that recently though, but not every country has the same speed of coming up with the laws covering having a second copy of your product, the things you've bought.
Yeah, and I think it might be allowed, like it might be a right of owning a book to be able to scan it for your own, to have it like on your own computer. And then I suppose it wouldn't be too much of a stretch to say, well, I just put it in my Dropbox or my Google Drive or my
I didn't want to carry 30 pounds of books with me to my friends once a week.
Yeah, so I just...
I have a digital copy on my my little netbook. I reference that as need be.
Yeah, and then from there, I mean, how much more of a step is it to just... Oh, well, I just happened to put it in the shared folder instead of the private folder by accident.
That's
and
when
my friends got access to it. And, well, but it was only a few friends, and that's probably not worth prosecuting. But then I suppose if it gets to hundreds of friends, then, okay, now you're...
Well, that's the thing. Getting to a few friends tends to lead to getting to a lot of people who you don't know at all.
Well, yeah, I suppose if it's kind of networked, I mean, that's true. I mean,
as
especially gamers.
As is all too often how it goes. I would be intrigued to see if they do something equivalent to what they've been talking about for the next generation of consoles. Mm-hmm. With used games, how someone can effectively borrow it from you, and then you can't play that digital copy because it doesn't have a physical equivalency. And while they've got it, you can't use yours.
Oh, yeah. Did they ever resolve? They're still doing that?
They're still working on it, and it's still an option. I think it's an interesting one, because for me, that's like loaning it out to a friend. You don't have access to it, but they do. Yeah. And it's set for a certain length of time, like they can play it for 1 week, and then it automatically reverts to you. And I think that's a good way, and that will definitely help promote extra sales. I was wondering if they would be doing that with a book, but that seems like a little bit more work than Wizards of the Coast might be up for right now. But if you're a third party that's looking to, make a name for yourself, and you can get that going, might not be a bad way.
Okay.
Because no one was upset like, we're going to prosecute you because you are lending your books to your friends. They have to go buy a copy if they want to do it. No.
Yeah.
There was no way that would hold up even in the worst court of law. You'd have to have a pretty heavily bribed judge to side with you on that sort of argument. So I think it'd be a nice digital equivalency and a nice way of saying, hey, we know you guys want it. As long as you have one person have it, then the digital copy you can just switch back and forth as to who has it, and then you can all get a little taste. You really like it? Spend $40, get your own. So, an interesting way, but I must say, if you talk with Monty Cook, Wizards of the Coast was very hesitant as to getting into the digital market back when he was part of it for 3rd edition. He was really going for it. He was saying, this is the future, this is how you go, and they were really resisting. They weren't even dragging their heels. They were entrenching themselves in, resisting it, apparently. So, take from that what you will as to how much they're going to try and pioneer the lead here. Although they are poised to be the person that really makes things happen.
Well, it's funny, if you're looking for a pioneer, look no further than Paizo or a smaller like Monty Cook's Malhevic Press. If you really want a pioneer, those are what you got to look at.
I do know White Wolf was a lot more interested in getting into digital copies than Wizards of the Coast, and that shows as to their I believe their sales initially. Because they were letting all sorts of people effectively just have the books. They didn't need to worry too much about like 40 pounds about where am I going to put all these darn books. Well, you put them in the books folder on your computer. There you go. So yeah, that's the big thing that's coming up.
Cool.
Set aside a little cash. There you go. A little bit now is a lot better than trying to get it all later. And don't put it in your bank account. You're not going to see it as $20 separate apart. You're just going to forget it, and then you're going to wind up spending it, and then all of a sudden you have $10 a month. You can only afford one of 3 books, and maybe a couple bags of chips.
Yeah.
So make sure you actually set the money physically aside.
Okay, yeah, good tip. Another big thing, in 2014, only 2 months away, a little more than 2 months away, Godicon.
Yes, that's right, end of February.
Yeah. So I bought my tickets and I signed up for. There's a couple of hoops you have to jump through, and it wasn't the greatest experience, but I did get on the site, and now I'm able to look at what's available. So I haven't decided what D&D games I want to play, but I've seen people have uploaded their little blurbs of the games that they're going to run. So maybe another week I'll talk a bit about specific ones, but for now I've just kind of read through them.
Well, in that case, what we can make for next week is you read through them, see which ones caught your eye, and try and figure out why they caught your eye.
Okay,
and then we can utilize that
as
maybe a pre-topic. Maybe there's enough for a full topic out of that then. Because let's face it, the blurb on there is the equivalent to trying to pitch a TV series to executives. You got to get their attention. You got to make this something that people are saying, I want to hear more about this. I want to become a part of this.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, though, that I was thinking as I was going through them, I was like, yeah, they all sound cool. I mean, they definitely sound like people have put work into them. So technically I could probably go to almost any of them and really have a good time. I'm sure I could. And I was thinking, well, maybe in the spirit of gaming, I should just roll a die and randomly choose, games. And if I get something I've already played, okay, fine. That's, I was hoping for something new, but maybe I will play something I've already played and just maybe I'll enjoy that.
I remember last year they had a nice one, which was basically a racing game. So many vehicles racing around a track, kind of Indy 500 style, except they have weapons and they're allowed to shoot at each other.
Yeah.
And that one looked like a fun game to play, but I was always off doing something else. And they had a track set up with Lego, and it was really easy for kids to pick up. And the guy explains what happens. Like, okay, so he shot you, you crashed into here, you took some damage, you're having a hard time getting started, so instead of 2d6 movement pieces, you only get 1d6 for movement this turn. And so I'd like to see if they have that again. I'd like to give that more of a try.
Okay.
Just for the fun of it, because, now that I'm a father, I'm going to have to really start thinking about, is this something I can get my daughter in on quickly so we can have some fun in later years? Or is this something you got to wait, like Settlers of Catan, you kind of have to be 13, 14 before you can kind of begin to understand the complexities where you can hope to win. Otherwise, you're basically playing to, spend time. Which is always good, but, sometimes it's fun to win too, right? My dad used to throw the occasional chess match so that I would win, to keep me interested and keep me trying harder.
Okay.
And that's why I do as good at the chess. If my dad won every time, and he could have very easily, then I would have just gotten, frustrated and not wanted to play again. I'd say, I hate chess. Chess is a game for people that are just like snobs or something. I hate the whole thing. No. Chess is a fun game. I like it, and occasionally I win at it. So yeah, I have to start looking at it from a new perspective this year. And, just a nice little homebrew game about racing cars around a track shooting each other. Maybe that's something I might want to get a copy of for my daughter later on. I'm sure at some point she's going to have Hot Wheels.
Your daughter into cars and shooting? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. You can...
Sounds like you want a boy.
Hey, there's no gender roles on this sort of thing. But
we'll see what she likes.
It's a game. So long as it's fun and you get a chance to trash one another. Is it really that different from Sorry? Because, you can take a board game Sorry and, replace it with cars, and then, you land on another car, and that's like you sideswipe them into the rails. They got to start all over, and they got to go back to the crash pit. It's all style and design differences at that point. So I'm starting to look at it as like, will she wind up having fun with it? This is something a young kid could effectively learn to play easily and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Because, let's face it, everyone remembers, you remember that Mousetrap game?
Yes.
Did you ever actually play it, or did you just set up the Mousetrap and then set it off?
No, we played it. We played the game how it was supposed to be played, yeah.
I have never played the game. All we ever did was set up the Mousetrap and then, set it off. And that was it. Oh, that was fun, yeah. Do you want to play a game? No, I saw the best part of it already. and so that was a game that was, not for us complex enough or wonderful enough to merit the complexity. There was never the impetus to actually play the game. It was just to have the fun of setting it off. That was it. So in my mind, that's what I consider like a failure game. Whereas Jenga, well, it's a success game. You always want to play another game of Jenga. Why? Because it's fun to get that one. Oh, now things are really difficult for everybody. Or let's try and play this together to see how tall we can get it properly.
Yeah, because once you knock it down, the fun.
And then when someone fails, it knocks down and stuff fun. Down it goes.
Fun.
Yeah.
And then you start again.
Yeah, so that's a simple enough game a kid can pick up. Although you want to make sure their motor coordination is at such a state they don't knock it over every third time. It happens with young kids. You want to make sure you get someone who's just delicate enough to pull it out without risking the entire thing coming down on move one. Although if that's how they want to play the game, so be it. I'm just thinking, she's going to have toys, and I do follow the cheap ass thing. There was the cheap ass games.
Yeah.
That basically said, you know what? If you guys have the dice or the tokens or a deck of cards, or like the character pieces, we'll just provide the basic rules of a game, and we can sell you a game then for $4. It's in a small envelope. It's basically like a small white, manila envelope. And out come the rules. This is how you play the game. You just need like a few tokens and a deck of cards. So if she's going to have all these toys around, I think having a game that we can make out of it adds extra fun to it. There's extra utility.
Yeah, for sure.
And if it involves like rolling dice and counting things up, then she's learning math. And that's how it starts. You trick them into learning.
Yeah. Did you know with Mousetrap, there was pieces of cheese, I think, something like that. You earn pieces of cheese, and then you can spend them. I don't know if you spend them on components. I'm not sure if
I never did anything with the pieces of cheese. The pieces of cheese were just there to put around to make it look like, oh yeah, that's the Mousetrap, right? Huh. You put it on the Rube Goldberg device and set it off. Oh, but one piece always has to go in with the mouse under the cage that traps them.
Yeah, because
that's how it goes. So yeah, we never actually played the game. I think I read the rules once, but that was like 2.5 decades ago, maybe. So yeah.
Now, so were you too old or too young, or is it just
initially too young? Then I just didn't care. I was able to set the thing up and set it off, and whee, there he goes. The guy dived. Tick, 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 tick. It goes. Oh, and down comes the Mousetrap.
Huh.
Who the heck is Rube Goldberg? And then I started seeing the devices, and I started like reading the Mad magazine, and that got me off into other tangents. And the next thing I know, I said, I'm too old for that board game. This was years ago.
Well, do you happen to own a copy, or is it?
No, the closest I have is Candyland.
Okay.
Which I got on sale for my daughter. In 10 years or so, whatever the minimum age is.
Because I think it'd be fun to break out Mousetrap one of these days. And try
it is nice to break out an old game every now and then and brush up again on the rules. It's a lot of fun. That said, there are some games you really have to sit down and like devote like an entire afternoon to. Like Risk 2210, that is not something that is played just over the course of a half hour. That is like a nearly full day endeavor if you want to play the full game.
Why do you say Risk 2210?
Because you get to go to the moon and there are undersea bases and you get to bombard the Earth from space.
So that takes longer than regular Risk?
Yes, it does. There are extra pieces. There are like captains and there's like military commanders for special units. And you really do have to take it much slower, especially depending who you play against. I have one friend, Morgan. I love him. But my goodness, could he take a game and turn it into the slowest paced tactical decision ever. And there's like a quick version for Risk 2210 where you only really have 5 rounds. That took us 4 hours. 5 people playing it. We were all done, like in a quick time, and he was doing things so slow. And he still didn't even win on that game either. So, some games, they are, like a long time endeavor. Like we both played Monopoly. Monopoly is not a half-hour game. Monopoly is an afternoon or an evening.
Well, technically, if you play it by the rules, it's about an hour.
What? I have never played a game of Monopoly that didn't last long or anything less than 3 hours.
Yeah, don't do free parking. That's the one. That's the one thing that makes it longer. But also, as soon as one player is bankrupt, that's the end of the game.
Oh, well, that's no fun. Then you only have one loser.
Well, one worst loser, and then the person with the most money is the winner, and then everybody in between is who didn't win, also losers, I guess, or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, so
participants. They're not officially a loser because they didn't go bankrupt.
But I mean, the problem with Monopoly, it's a game that if you're having fun, you want it to continue. And often, like, I've played with kids, like my kids in my family, cousins or brothers or sisters, who they want to continue playing, so if they're winning, they'll give money to the people who are behind. They'll be like, oh, well, that's okay, and I'll give you this money. And that just prolongs the game. It just makes it last longer, which I guess if everybody's happy playing it, sure. Well,
see, that's the thing, is they're doing that sort of thing. That's where you start them off on fustian bargains.
Right.
Like, okay, so you're broke. You need $500. I'll give it to you, but the next 3 times you pass go, I collect your $200. So you're making $600 off of that. And then you try and get them into worse and worse deals as you go on and see how good of a bad deal you can get them in.
Well, yeah.
I remember one instance with my youngest brother, Jason, where he was quite young, and I got him. He wanted a Monopoly. He wanted the green set, and I had that final green card, and I made him a trade. All his cash except for $1 in exchange for the one, and he had a couple thousand. So this was well beyond the price. It was a very bad deal. If he had landed on anything, he would have had to start, like mortgaging properties and selling houses and everything.
Yeah.
He won the game.
Huh.
Him and his luck. I mean, I don't want to hit him because I would like to hit the metaphysical personification of his luck. Because that was just rude, man. I had him in a really nice bad deal, and he still won the game.
Wow, interesting. I didn't think because
if he had hit someone else's property, but no, it's like community chest, this and that, and then I own this property, this and that, and then he skips around. Now I've got $200. Now you landed on my property. Now I'm building houses. Now I've got hotels. Now you're broke. I've got all my money back.
Wow. Huh.
So it's fun to see how bad of a good bad deal you can get somebody into.
Yeah.
But if the payoff doesn't come in the end, like I bankrupted you, you had $1, and then you went on this one, and that's how I crushed you utterly. If that doesn't happen, it's kind of like, oh, you didn't get the joke at all.
Was it just when you played? Was it just the two of you playing?
No, it was my other brother Adam and our dad.
So 4 players.
Yes, it was a 4-player game.
Were you winning at that point?
Well, especially after I took all his money. Yes.
Well, that's the thing about Monopoly money is a small. I mean,
there's a reason why there is the term Monopoly money.
Monopoly is important. The money's important, but it's a bit more important to have the property.
That's the thing. I already had 2 Monopolies at the time, and there's no way I was getting that green property off him. All I could do was block him, and it was a pretty one-sided deal.
True.
Unless you were able to see further ahead in the future.
What did you say you got off him? Just all of his cash except one, and what
all
else?
Except for $1. It was a few $1,000 for the one green property.
So just cash. Yeah, that doesn't sound that. I mean,
he really didn't have anything else. I think he had one railroad, maybe a utility, and the 2 properties. It was pretty much a guarantee he'd lose, and then everyone starts landing on green. So no one landed on that property until I gave it to him from the deal. And then people are landing on it. It's like, oh, ching, 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 puts on houses, ching, 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 more houses, hotels.
Oh well.
C'est la vie.
I guess that's how it goes.
Well, it is also a thing with Monopoly. You play with 2 people, it's a quicker game, but the more people you have, like you use all those tokens, it's a long endeavor. Yeah.
Well, there's also a rule in Monopoly about only using the houses that come with the game.
The amount of property is limited.
Yeah.
And then you can wind up selling like a hotel to the bank on the right part of a turn so that the next person can get it, so you get good deals for effectively selling your hotel off. So there's some interesting fun deals you can do there that really can't be replicated on like digital stuff, which is why I think Monopoly will always be ultimately a board game.
Well, I mean there are digital versions. So
and I've played them. I've played the stuff that came with the I think it was Cinnamon Toast Crunch or the
it came with
Cheerios.
the CD with the
back in the end of the 90s they had the
back
games.
In the day when we used CDs.
Yeah, and you could get them in the cereal box. It was in one of those, and we got that. It wasn't a bad game, but the deals just weren't the same. You couldn't have these fun deals that contorted things like. The next 3 times you land on community chest, I will get them. For good or for ill, I will wind up carrying out the responses unless it's moving the token around, in which case we said, no, that's against like the fundamentals of it.
Okay.
So it's like if you have to pay money, I pay. If you get money, I get it. And you make fun little deals like that. And that's where the game truly shines in just having those weird deals set up. And that's why I've never truly gotten frustrated with it, and despite the fact that you hear all the people online eventually saying, Monopoly will kill you, Monopoly will separate you from your family, and you'll never talk again. You will hate each other after it. Like, not really, not if you're having fun with it. How do you have fun with it?
Well, didn't you just say something about you wished violence upon your brother?
I wished violence upon the manifestation of his luck. Him, I have no ill will against on that.
Right.
But that luck, boy, howdy, did I want to kick it between the uprights.
So you want him to never have luck again?
Not luck that bad, or that good, I suppose. I mean, that was just... He was, by by all statistical likelihood, he should have been out in 1 or 2 rounds of the board.
Mm-hmm.
And he winds up winning the game because he never lands on another person's property. He's getting like, oh, hey, $15, second place in a beauty contest. Oh, I'll get out of jail free card. Now I don't have to pay money as I spend 3 rounds in jail. So it's a weird situation where I'm okay with him. It's like it's his luck. I mean, he rolled the dice.
Right.
But the forces that caused the dice to roll those numbers, the doubles 3 times in a row.
Right, of course.
I wouldn't mind giving an atomic wedgie to that.
Yes, it's too bad they're immaterial.
Immaterial and possibly not even real.
I think that's what immaterial means.
Well, you can have things that are immaterial, like forces.
Yeah,
like gravity is immaterial.
Yeah.
Even though I guess it does have ultimately a material base.
It operates on materials.
Yeah. But it itself, I mean, I'm sure everyone at some point here has gotten very angry at gravity. It's like, God damn, why did I should have stubbed my toe that way from just the trip, and those stairs, why did they get so steep all of a sudden?
Yeah.
But so like my brother, I had no ill will against him, but
okay, well, with that established,
I think we have a nice main topic today.
Yeah, shall we move on to the main topic?
I think we have a versus contest going on here.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. I wanted to bring a main topic. I wanted to ask the question of the 8. Well, one of the questions. I want to ask Cowboys versus Knights.
No. And these are the chivalric knights, not just the I own property so I can treat you like dirt sort of,
well, I was trying to frame this earlier. Like in my brain, I was trying to think of how can I what sort of group do I want to bring to the table to compare. Cowboys, they're not just Cowboys. See, these 2 groups that I'm thinking of are not Cowboys and Knights. I'm thinking of Cowboys is the semi-outlaw, gunslinging, sometimes works as a cowboy, horse riding, Wild West guy, that archetype. So he's not just a cowboy, although that's part of what he is.
Because cowboy is a technical profession. You actually work on cows.
Yeah.
In this case, it would be like, nomadic ranch hand / gunslinger.
Yeah, and also I don't want to say necessarily the heroic type either, which is why I didn't say like sheriffs versus knights.
Well, in that genre, they do have a lot of anti-heroes.
Yeah, exactly. And
people seeking personal redemption sort of thing.
Yeah. And there's the fast shoot or the shoot first, ask questions later kind of guy. Yeah. Yeah,
he's got a quick temper and a quicker hand.
But not necessarily bad guys either. I mean, so we're talking anti-heroes. So it's okay. So cowboy works as your archetype, your name.
Well, provided you give it a proper, preamble, like as you've done there, because cowboy can mean a lot of different things to people depending on what they've seen in the movies and in the TV shows throughout the decades.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so which is the cooler hero? Which makes better heroic stories? And heroic maybe is not the best word, but the better, good.
Which tells the better tale.
Yeah, which tells the better stories. Okay, so and then on the knight side, I don't necessarily mean the prototypical chivalric knights.
Not like a knight of the round table sort of thing.
Not necessarily Galahad, but more the knights along the lines of just, and not necessarily landowners either, but maybe the European equivalent of the cowboy from a few hundred years
prior.
1,000 years prior.
Well, 1,000 to, maybe even just a few hundred years prior.
Yeah, it could be even up to that.
Well, that's the thing is the 1800s works for the Wild West.
Mm-hmm.
And you were still encountering some, night-based combat in the old world.
Well, because I play Civilization, and you can have your cavalry fighting against knights, for example.
Yeah, then again, you can also have your bandits somehow turn into a helicopter.
Yeah.
Don't understand it, but whatever. There's some interesting situations there. I think we can look at. They're not that far apart. They both, both
ride horses.
So. They both ride horses across the land, doing good deeds, trying to do good deeds as they see fit. That said, the cowboy has more access to guns and firearms and alcohol and tobacco.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a trifecta of awesome.
If they were to get in a fight, the cowboy would be able to shoot the knight, and that would be the end of that.
Well, provided, like the knight hasn't already, sliced him open with the sword.
Yeah.
But, okay, so do we want to take, like, one position? Like, you argue for one and I'll argue for another?
Okay, well, so you want to take Cowboys?
I can take either side. I'm a wonderful, angry talker, and I can talk about stuff I don't even believe in.
Do you want me to go and tell you why I think Knights are better than Cowboys?
All right, you go for that.
I think Knights are better than Cowboys because they have to rely on themselves. Well, Cowboys do too. But the Knights...
You don't really see them come into town and then, they have to get the sheriff on their side first. They are the law.
That's true. The Knight is the sheriff.
No, the Knight supersedes any sheriff. The Knight comes into town, the Knight, says, this is wrong, sort of thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
So they are the highest authority that roams the land, as opposed to the gunslinging sheriff, cowboy that has to get the sheriff on his side. Otherwise, the sheriff is going to put everyone in the dirt. So it becomes this like a bad guy versus sheriff. Instead of like a two-way fight, it becomes a three-way argument.
Yes. Well, let me see. That's unfortunate because I want to. I don't like that black and white. Well, I don't like the story where he's just given a free pass to do whatever he wants, because bad things could happen. Although that's kind of fun too.
That is an occasional story too. So and so ends up falling from grace.
Yeah.
And then you get the knight errant or the black knight.
Yeah, or the jerk knight who just takes what he wants from the peasants, and he's like, well, I can, so I will, and yeah. And I suppose then you get conflicts between different knights, and the other knights, well, that's not chivalrous. You shouldn't be treating people like that.
And then they start jousting.
Okay,
I will give this. The knights do have a better method of, solving things. When it comes to Cowboys, it's usually a very lethal, blam, blam, okay, now who's still alive, sort of, showdown at high noon. Which, good presentation, good suspense, good visual imagery on the whole thing.
Yeah.
But the concept of just knocking someone off the horse and saying, no, you're the loser, you're wrong. You know what? They get to, about 9 times out of 10, step up and walk away. Sometimes they're bruised. And only infrequently do they wind up getting actually impaled upon the thing.
I don't know. I wonder, like, if two knights meet in a remote village and they're both, like, traveling somewhere, they're going opposite directions, they happen to meet in the same village.
As I was going to St. Ives, I met a knight with, what rhymes with Ives? That a knight would have. 7 knives?
7 knives.
This is a pretty violent knight.
Some beehives?
Oh, so he's like one of those gardener ones too, eh? The insane ones, Ponce de Leon types. Wait, no, Ponce de Leon just had a hat that looked like a beehive. He never actually had the beehive hat. Weird, crazy Spaniards. They're wonderful hats.
Okay, yeah. But yeah, so they get in an argument, and there's nothing for it, but they have to fight. So then they set up a whole joust the next morning. Is that how that? I guess they would.
Joust or trial by combat where everyone can see. And it's always a big public spectacle, and people are like cheering, and there's foods to be brought out and eaten.
Yeah.
You don't seem to be cheering on the sidelines during a showdown at high noon. Everyone's closing their windows and doors, and they're peeking out. No one's cheering. No one's having fun. This is a deadly combat thing, man.
Yeah, I don't know if I would stick around. Well, I would have to stick around to see a joust just because I've never seen a joust before. So if a joust was really happening, I'd be like, yeah, I don't care if I... But...
I will admit, though, in this day and age, it sounds kind of rednecky. Say, well, what are these guys going to do? Well, see, they're going to hop on their horses, and they're going to run at each other with sticks. But they got a lot of armor, so the sticks don't really hurt. And the first one to fall off his horse is the loser. And it sounds like, wow, that's kind of uncultured, man. That's pretty lowbrow. But it used to be the height of chivalry and daring, is to do that at a tournament where everyone can see.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like I picture that sort of thing happening, of course, in a tournament, but it's hard to imagine it just being like 2 knights meet and that's how they decide to solve their problem. Like, wouldn't it be? Like, it wouldn't be a sword duel because you have horses. You should use your horses. You have horses and lances. Why don't you use them? I suppose the thing is they won't be traveling alone. If they have a horse plus a lance plus armor plus everything like that, you can't carry that all on one horse. You
got your entourage with you, your page and your squire.
Page and squire and a couple of extra, like, hired hands.
Yeah.
And
your tax accountant
porters,
who's helping out, making sure he gets all the receipts.
A cook, yeah.
So you're never quite alone. And that is one of the things I do like about the Cowboys. They may have a sidekick, but sometimes they're very much alone.
Yeah, the cowboy can be completely self-sufficient, like him and his horse, and that's all you need. And a backpack with some trail rations in it.
Trail rations and a couple things of shots so we can get a rabbit every now and then.
Yeah, a gun, of course. Yeah.
Well, not just like a gun, but in this case a hunting rifle, so you can
a long rifle
game,
for hunting. Yeah.
And that's what I do like about them is they very much are themselves. So in some sense, you can see them as an equivalent of some like the Eastern stuff where you have like the wandering wise man, just living off of like what he knows about the wild.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just learning about himself as much as anything else. And that is kind of like some of them. Not that I think any of them really did it that way, but they'd learn about themselves just being out and so alone. Or with a companion, Brokeback Mountain sort of thing, or otherwise.
Yeah. Well, I suppose, like, one of the things I'll say, like, in favor of that knight with his entourage is he's giving them all, like, work. He's a job creator. He's the,
so he's a sign of a good economy.
Yeah.
But when you get the Cowboys coming to town, well, it's a bad economy because they're drifters looking for good work. They couldn't find work elsewhere. Cowboys mean bad economy. Although, I will say this, in the cowboy genre, it's like nobody ever tries shooting at the horses I've ever seen. No one ever, you might steal horses, but you don't mistreat them. You don't wind up killing them. And so, the knight is known for chivalry, from from the French cheval, which means horse, how you treat your horse. Forget about treating other people and women. Chivalry is about how well you treat your horse. In the cowboy genre, you didn't even have to expect that. It's like, they follow the code of chivalry. No, everyone does. It's so ingrained. It's just your essential basics of how you live. You can't live without it. It's there. It's a bedrock of your genre, of who you are. Of course you treat your horses nice. Someone shoots a horse, that is the lowest down criminal, and their death is neither going to be quick nor happy. Not for anyone. It's going to be something that everyone just winds up squinting going, ooh.
Yeah, well, it's hard to imagine a happy death, but...
Well, that's the thing. Is other people would wind up being happy, but it's like, no, he's dead. Good. No, this is someone kills a horse in the Western genre, and that pretty much guarantees it so that everyone just winds up doing a squint, like, ooh, that was a violent one. Ooh, I didn't even want to see that. I hated the guy, but no one deserves a death like that.
All right.
Like, trampled under buffalo for 15 minutes or something. So in that case, I think their code is so much more ingrained. Like, you can expect a peasant not to follow chivalry. A peasant can do, like, whatever stupid little... dirt harvesting peasant thing that they do in the Knight's Land.
Yeah.
But in the Wild West, everyone follows that rule. You don't mess with a horse. You can steal it, but you still treat it right, you still feed it right, and you brush it down at the end of the day to get the burrs off.
Well, I don't know if everybody follows the rule that.
Well, that's the thing. It's so ingrained within the movies, within the books and all that. I don't see it not happening. Everyone, even if you're stealing another person's horse, that horse is still looked after.
Yeah.
So it can be stolen back again later on. Oh no. But even the horse rustlers treat the horses okay.
Yeah.
The riders of Rohan would be very proud of how well they're treating their horses.
All right.
So that's the thing, and that's like everybody does it. Anybody who steals a horse in the thing, whether it be the marshal, be the town fool, the town drunk, the horses still get treated all right. They get brushed down properly, given the proper things to eat and drink, and they're not overtaxed. When was the last time someone ran a horse to death in a Western?
I don't think I watch enough Westerns.
And in like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, they definitely could have done that. There was a few scenes to show how harsh the desert was, where the man with no name dying sort of thing. How else do you show it's bad? They could have had this horse die. No, they made sure not to have anything like that. No, you can't have a dead horse. That's horrible. So in that sense, I do like them because their sense of how you live is so ingrained. You can't do it other ways. You can't have the Black Knight, who doesn't follow the code of chivalry. There's no equivalent to it. It's that fundamental.
Yeah, it's survival, right? I don't know.
The horse is the equivalent of like a car. Although you must admit, in some movies, you see the car. Oh, now we're out of gas. Guess we gotta walk.
Or a lot of movies where they just drive cars off cliffs or explode them or
jump
whatever.
them off this and that, so the whole thing of they disintegrates before their eyes in a body and collateral damage system.
That's funny too. Like in Hollywood and stuff, they love blowing up and destroying and wrecking cars. But
the only time I've seen a horse blow up was when it was Farcical from Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
No, sorry, the Seth MacFarlane. Todd McFarlane,
the cartoonist.
Spawn, yeah.
Or no, not just cartoonist, but the comedic cartoonist.
Yes, Family Guy.
Yes,
and all that. Yes. And the only time I ever saw a horse explode was when they're parodying it.
Well, didn't a horse explode in UHF, the Weird Al show?
Once again, pure utter parody.
Yeah.
I don't think Weird Al is a default by which you set anything other than good parody music.
Yeah, they don't do like slow motion horse wrecks for some reason on film. I guess that would be rather disturbing, actually.
That would be incredibly disturbing.
Yeah.
I've seen artwork, and I'll do that in quotations, where they had like a cow that was like frozen up, sliced into slices, and then each slice was laminated, so you could see like a cow bisected 100 times, and that was art. That was disturbing, but a slow motion like horse wreck. That would just, I don't even know if I could look at that. That would just be nasty. That'd be like, ooh, so much pain in such a noble animal.
Well, and for a film, that would have to be fake, obviously.
Or out of country, and then very much discouraged in
I bet like the movie would probably get banned.
That'd be like a snuff film, finding one of those ones, man. It's a horse snuff film.
Yeah. So, whereas with car wrecks, it's like, no, you actually wreck a car for the film. So
sometimes several cars to get the right angle, see which one works the best.
And it's like, well, the same with like film with gore, and when people get hurt in films, that all has to be fake, and that's people work really hard on making it look good. Most
of the time, it is fake. Occasionally, someone will wind up hurting themselves, and then they keep it in.
Yeah.
Poltergeist is an example.
Yeah.
Like, they pulled too hard back on her, and so her screams of agony and pain actually were happening.
Oh, okay.
Or, if we want to go back to a horse example, The Never-Ending Story, when the horse is sinking in the bog of sorrows and all that, is the horse was actually panicking. That was an actual horse freaking out. And you know what? They kept it. They kept it and they put it in. There's no thing at the end, no animals were harmed in the making of this film, because I believe the horse did sustain injuries from that scene.
Okay. So I think you're being on this too hard on the knights, though, because yes, the world of the Wild West was very valued horses very much, but I also think that the knightly culture was very interested in the well-being of horses.
It was, but it was mostly just the knights. You wouldn't see a peasant, treating the horse like such an esteemed thing. The horse was an animal of burden. You work it like a machine.
Okay.
In the Wild West, everyone treated the horses with the respect that their noble species deserves. Everyone treated the horse right, and if you shot a horse, you were the worst. It was worse than shooting a dog, because a dog could be mangy, but a horse is noble.
So if you were a farmer in the Wild West, if you happened to have a farm like out in one of those states in the West, and a horse...
You got a nice little Clydesdale to help plow the fields.
Like maybe some cowboy fell off, somebody fell off their horse. Maybe not a cowboy, because cowboys would
or,
be
their horse got
confident.
stolen. Black Bart stole their horse. They need a horse to follow up on.
Well, no,
Put a saddle on the Clydesdale.
What I'm saying is a horse wanders onto the farmer's property, and the horse has maybe a saddle but no rider or something like that, like as if somebody had fallen off. So the farmer, I guess he would treat the horse fairly well.
Yeah, make sure that the first thing the horse gets is water and some oats.
Yeah.
And then he gives it a brush down as he's looking through the saddle to see if you can find out who the owner is.
And then I suppose, like, sort of the Little House on the Prairie reaction is then, well, I got this horse, I'm going to take it into town, and...
If nobody claims it within 2 weeks, it's mine.
Is that how that works in the Wild West? I guess. I mean...
Well, it's not like the sheriff can keep the horse indefinitely, because you got to keep feeding it and giving it proper water.
You can't just let the horse go or anything like that.
Well, I suppose some could, and that's how you have those wild horse populations in some areas.
Yeah.
But that was, usually other things, like, oh, the horses got loose and now we can't catch them sort of situation. But, you can't have, like, the sheriff, I've got 36 horses back here. The people keep dying and we keep having them turned in. What are we going to do?
The Cowboys keep getting shot off their horses.
So we've got the horses now here in the impound lot. What am I going to do with them? So, yeah, I think it was, like if the farmer finds it and no one, claims it within a certain amount of time, the rights go to the farmer. Yeah. The farmer has...
maybe the farmer has, like, a little kid that grows up and wants to be a cowboy or something like that, and it gets.
Or maybe the kid just wants to go to town to go to the school, because they'd have school and
they could ride their horse to school.
Ride the horse to school, make sure it's settled up next to the one room school as they get in a few hours education. Come on back and help with the afternoon chores.
I guess that's one thing that the Wild West had, even as small as the one room schoolhouses were. I don't think they had any schoolhouses in the nightly Europe.
And I'll say this, their respect for the education, making sure people, the kids especially, were educated, is superior to what you see in a lot of places now. You'll say, oh no, they closed down our school. Oh, this is horrible. Now the kids have to go so many hours to school, and they're cutting out these classes. If it was the Wild West, they'd have done some stuff to raise up and try and convince people to help pay to make sure that the kids get a decent education and all the classes they deserve. You don't see that happening nowadays.
Well, I mean, we're talking...
the House on the Prairie sort of thing.
Yeah, we're talking about that idealized Little House on the Prairie type of Wild West, which, I mean, I like to think that in some sort of way sort of did exist. And I've seen enough of Westerns where, they're like some people pulling their kids out of school because... it's the First Nations kid. His tribe is still nomadic, and so he can't attend classes for 6 months of the year because he's not in the area. Yeah.
Or it'll wind... That was actually a story I remember seeing. That was kind of interesting. So it's like, I didn't know they had that sort of story back in 1952.
And, like, a lot of the Cowboys wouldn't have valued education. They would say, well, no, just,
not for
work.
themselves, but, it's like, you got to get going to school there, kid. You don't want to grow up to be a wanderer like me. You should learn to make sure you can be a good, honest citizen.
I wouldn't say everyone shared that attitude. I would say some people did and some people didn't.
But you would see that often enough. And trust me, I have been watching my old-fashioned Westerns. I got a channel for it.
Again, the Hollywood version. So
yeah, but it does happen often enough that it becomes a thing where education is at least seen as a good thing. I don't always believe what they need, what they're teaching you. But the math is definitely essential, and that'll help you out further along in life there, kid. So you get going to class and make sure you study your math, if nothing else.
Well, yeah, that's hopefully good.
And you didn't see that with the Knights. Education was like, you go to church, and that's where they educate you, and anything else is blasphemies. Plus you got more chores, and then you have to die of the plague.
Then you die of the plague.
And then you got to get up the next day and do it all over again.
I guess, in Europe, in the knightly sort of age, I guess.
Ages.
The knightly ages, or whatever, the Middle Ages or Dark Ages even. Education was something that was for either the clergy, probably mainly the priests and stuff, because like the church had control of education. But, I mean, aristocrats would also get educated.
Well, that's the thing. Is there was a time if you were an educated person in Russia, you would not speak Russian. You would not know the Russian language. You would know French, because that's where you went to get educated, and that's who you're speaking with all the other educated people.
Yeah.
If you wanted to actually speak to a Russian peasant, you had to get like one of your assistants who knew both languages and translate it like one of those magic telephone things that everyone plays. So, that's why we have the term lingua franca, the French language.
Yeah. Now, do you think, are we being unfair by not including indigenous people or in the case of knights, those maybe the Slavs or like
Well, that was something I was going to try and keep out of, because if I'm arguing with on the side of the cowboy, the Indian was seen as well. They had the two ones. They had the Indians like, woo, well, they're attacking, and that becomes just a generic mook enemy to shoot at and show how good a shot you are against someone who you don't have to do like a high noon showdown with. But they also had enough presentation of them as being the wise people. You're out in the wilderness and you're going to die. Well, thank goodness you've got a First Nations companion with you, because now you're going to survive. He knows the tricks. Oh, this moss will, make sure you feel numb, and this is how you start a fire, and this is how you avoid dying. And sometimes they even had mystical powers. In the knightly era, if you were an outsider, you were pretty much seen as in league with Satan. So I didn't want to bring that up, and that's for your benefit.
Because I'm on the side of the knights.
Well,
I've been given that side.
That's how you started, so that's how I was going to keep running it. The other, in the case of the cowboy, is seen as different, but not necessarily bad or wrong.
Yeah. Well, and technically you could be both a cowboy and an Indian, or you could be an Indian cowboy. You could be First Nations and also have the job of being a cowboy. Yes,
I remember seeing a few instances of that. Not as common as that, but more often than I will say a black cowboy, until Will Smith did his Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
When so it really was back then the dynamic of Eurasian person. Well, there was the Asian people in there too, but they were always seen with just the railroad. Unless the story doesn't involve a railroad, you're not going to see anybody from China. That's just kind of weird thing about how it went. But yeah, it was an interesting dynamic of they're not evil or wrong because they're different. They're just different, and they know different things, and sometimes they know powerful, weird things, but not necessarily bad things. You didn't see like, this is an evil shaman from a rival, nation, tribe, and they summon demons, man, because they're actually in league with Satan. And you could totally have done that back in the 50s. So they're other, they're not Christian, therefore they must be evil. You could probably have gotten away with that.
Well, if we're talking knights, also, like, knights sort of intruded into D&D, and the D&D world has goblins and orcs and things like that the knights are fighting against.
The more fantastic knights, we'll say.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's an equivalent for like what cowboys would fight.
Well, the thing is, the orcs and the goblins are equivalent to the first group of Indians I talked about, who just attack things, and then you got to circle the wagons, and protect ourselves. That was effectively what they are. They were goblins.
So I suppose if you look at certain role-playing games that are supposed to, like, based on the Wild West, you might see the Indians cast in that role.
One of the two main roles that they had on a lot of the movies and TV series was effectively being goblins.
Yeah.
But very nasty goblins. I mean, they would really get out some people with arrows, and by and large, you don't see that often in D&D. Unless you're low level and the DM has it out for you. But that's another matter entirely. So I think I'm going to have to side with the whole thing that the Wild West was better than the
Wild West is better than the Wild Europe.
Or Untamed Europe, because they did go into spots and they'd fight a witch or something that was blighting crops and save the day.
Yeah, because it's the witch's fault that the crops failed.
It was always the witch's fault. It was always. That said, there are some things I do like about the knights and all that. Their Grail quest, their quest for something greater, for something big, for something true and powerful. I really do like it, especially when you use Grail quest as actually, I'm looking for the MacGuffin, but I'm really looking for myself. And so in the end, they learn more about themselves, who they are, and how good they can be if they apply themselves correctly. You really don't see that with the Cowboys. There
isn't a Cowboys quest?
It'll be like, I gotta get my horse back, or I'm looking for the man who shot my paw. But it's never the same as like, I am looking for this great object that will bring peace to the land. It's like no, I'm going to try and stop this guy from putting a railroad through in this area instead of that one, because then he'll own all the good land next to the railroad as opposed to owning land in the middle of nowhere. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, that's true.
The cowboy was much more self-serving than the knight. The knight was looking for something grand and glorious. The cowboy was looking for a meal and maybe a nice place to settle down and just start a new life.
Well, the cowboy hero, though, might have been more compassionate when he encountered regular people because, if he was doing his own thing and he encountered, a family of farmers or whatever that were, having trouble with some bandits or I don't know.
He'd help them out, yes, yeah. But it was by and large just because, he's large for a number of cases atoning for past sins. I was a bandit once myself. I have caused a lot of problems. I've hurt people like you. I will absolve myself of some sin by being the other side in this fight now. Whereas the knight, where was the last time you saw, he was a disgraced knight, but now he wanders the land trying to do good to find salvation.
That sounds like a good story.
That sounds like a great story. And why were people not writing stories? Because they had some nice medieval authors writing great stories about knights back in the time. Why was nobody writing about the atoning knight? I think the clergy could have grabbed onto that.
Okay, I'm trying to think if I can think of an example.
But there's nothing that jumped out. There's nothing that stood the test of time.
The atoning knight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
I think Arthur tried to atone for some stuff.
Arthur both tried to atone for stuff as he was committing other sins.
But yeah, he was also...
I'm trying to be a good knight, but make me look like this man here so I may sleep with his wife. So, yeah, there were some of those stories like that. Arthur was a man of his passions. So even as he tried to do good, he was getting it on with, his Duke's wife.
Okay, yeah.
So, I do kind of like that moral complexity sometimes, too. Don't get me wrong. So you have a knight like Arthur. Here's a bit of a tangent. In comics, I think it's the Marvel comics, they have the character Hercules as a hero. Who is his greatest enemy? Hercules, when he's drunk. And a lot of it is about him trying to atone for the sins of what he's done throughout the centuries of just being a drunken lout. Like there's one bit, I'm sure you've seen it on the internet as a meme, cool story, bro, and it's him smiling a goofy smile, doing a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that came from an issue where he was trying to make amends with Hippolyta for the things he did to her back in the day. Okay. And so they wound up having a great story about what it is for a man to try and atone for being such a horrible man that he's effectively a rapist. Because that is, according to some stories, what happened.
Yeah. Okay.
Their liaison was not always considered consensual.
Okay, yeah.
And so it was he was trying to atone. He was trying to atone for it, and she wouldn't even let him through the door. And looking through the door like the peephole, and he's smiling with the goofy thumbs up, okay. I'm a good guy now. I'm not who I used to be. I'm trying to do better. She wouldn't even let him in, and he has to acknowledge the fact that even if he's trying to move on, some people won't let him. Some people will always hold him to his old standard. And so even when he's trying to atone, he's still winding up messing up often enough or doing weird things that people can't see him as the atoner. They see him as just that crazy guy. C'est la vie.
Yeah, that's how that one goes.
And so, a complexity like that with Arthur in the Knights, where even as he tries to be the great knight who's leading, his nation into a glorious golden age, he still thinks this lady's a babe, a total babe, and he has got to get physical with her. But she's married. So, Merlin, if you could make me look like her husband, just for one night, that's all I'm asking. And so I do appreciate that moral complexity that you don't really see with the Cowboys things. You're either a villain or you're a hero or an anti-hero, and by and large, you're not an anti-hero who's also committing, other atrocities and sins as he goes about. You don't see that. It's like a white hat, black hat, gray hat sort of thing, and you can't.
There's no white armor, black armor, gray armor.
Well, that's the thing is in the Knights you do sense that moral complexity. Lancelot having the affair, Arthur having the affair, men who are trying to do good but are still ultimately, constrained by their ruling emotional passions. I believe there was Boris the knight who liked to drink. He liked to eat too much. And those were his things. So these were things like they had the 7 deadly sins spread about them, but they were still trying to do good, and I like that story with the knights.
Okay,
that
yeah.
Even though you are a victim of your passions, even if you're trying to do good, you're still falling a victim to them, you can still try to do better. Whereas in the Cowboys, an anti-hero's an anti-hero, the villain's a villain, and the hero is if he has a drink, he's not going to get too drunk, or if he is, he's just going to wake up the next day, rub his beard, go, that's too much, wash some water on his face, and then he's good to go. It doesn't show the complexities. It only shows the roles as they are almost stereotypically defined.
Well, I mean, if you're looking at it stereotypically, yeah.
But that's the thing,
okay.
With the knights, they don't have the stereotypes quite so well, and they're showing more things like, yes, I have this, like, I do eat too much and I get drunk too much, but I still go out and I quest for the Holy Grail to, bring peace and health to the land. And so you get the whole thing of, like, you can do better, even if you still, maybe you do drink a little bit too much. That doesn't mean you're confined solely to that sin, like, that's all you are, is the man who drinks too much. You can do better, even if you still can't overcome that one flaw in your character. You can still strive for something good. And I think that's a great lesson. I don't think enough people wind up noticing that lesson, but I think it's, for those who do spot it, I think it's a good thing to say, yeah, even though I'm still not a perfect being, I can try to do better. I can try to do something great. And I like that. I do like that in the story of the Knights.
All right,
So I'm, even though I'm on the side of the Cowboys for this argument, I'm not going to say the Knights are completely without merit. They do have their nice points.
So the Knights, they take on epic, world-changing quests, because Knights are often tied to kingdoms, and the adventure might take place someplace in between kingdoms or something like that. But often it takes place in kingdoms.
Or the parts of the kingdoms where the law does not normally tread. If they bring law to the place.
But the knights are often tied to the order and the actual what's going on in the world, whereas with Cowboys it feels more like, well, it's off in a province, off in the frontier. It doesn't like...
They bring law to the lawless areas too, but they are very much apart. They're not part of the law. They're not like some wandering sheriff. They're just someone out there who is instilling the order when there's too much chaos.
Yeah, and when you're in the Wild Wild West, there's a lot of stuff happening, I guess, because it's it's action, right? But it's like the world-shaking events are happening over in the East, over in New York City, and
the new law is getting passed here, and this is going on there. About the biggest thing they wind up doing is, once again, helping make sure the railway gets put to the right area, and that the evil villain isn't making sure it goes towards his land, so he gets all the good railroad land.
That is interesting because...
And I will note that is a legitimate historical thing. For those of you who do want to look up within the thing, the history of Fort Steele. It was a town, and it was a nice big town in the area of eastern BC, and there was a man who owned a lot of land, and that land was not near Fort Steele, but this man was in control of where the railway goes. And hey, the railway goes by his land and not by Fort Steele. And now Fort Steele is a heritage town where you can go see what things used to be like, and where that guy had all the land is now the town of Cranbrook, which is a very bad location, as it's not nearby like a running source of water like you would normally see within the province.
There's no brook in Cranbrook?
That's the thing, is it's further away, and to get the proper amount...
Cran means far away from the brook.
Apparently, yes, in this case. Cran is a wonderful First Nations word, meaning there is no. And so to get the proper amount of water for a place of the size of Cranbrook, it has to kind of be imported in. You got to get pipe systems working up and the whole thing, and it does make things more difficult. There's a small kink in the problem whenever they're dealing with expanding the area out a little bit more, or they want to bring something in that's going to cause this much water to be used. That becomes much more of a factor as opposed to, well, we've got a creek running by here, and we can just keep siphoning more off easily.
Well, I like this point about the Wild West being like non-interesting, because the thing about the Wild West is it is foundational for us because we live in the western part of Canada.
We live on the land that was the Wild West. Although, admittedly, being Canadians, it was a bit more mild West.
Mild West. Well, depending.
We tried to make more deals with the First Nations people as opposed to just herding them, into areas and then just forcing things upon them.
Although, we did some of that.
Depending who you talk to, maybe the deal wasn't that much better. But at least there was more deals in the process. We were trying to work with them as opposed to call in the military and force them out of here. This is now white man territory.
Well, yeah, I don't think we were as bad as the Americans.
We weren't.
I
will admit, we weren't as good as we could have been, but at least it wasn't as bad as down south.
I hope, but
things were a little bit better controlled. We had the Mounties coming out just to try and get things going right.
But it's funny that, like, what we consider sort of our history and our foundation in the West, like western part of North America, it is not particularly epic or world-shaking in the stories that we tell about it.
No, but it has a nice personal touch I find very nice. The Oregon Trail, that was pretty big sort of thing, and there are stories about that, but they're all personal stories, like how this family made it, the hardships they endured as they went. It's not about how everybody did it, how everyone was going. They tend to tell these little stories or these snippets of what it was like for the people, the individuals. And so it had much more of a personal contact to it. Why is the cowboy, saving the day? Well, the farmer's daughter managed to, spark his interest, and now he's doing out of what might be love for the first time since his old flame perished. And so, it has a much more personal touch, and I think that works for storytelling nicely in the movies, because the hero is a unique individual, as opposed to, telling the story of war and peace, where things are, big epic movements are going here and there. When if you involve a person, they're only around for maybe a chapter, and then they're gone forever, and that's why you have so many dang characters in that book.
Have you read War and Peace?
I've tried several parts of it. I've tried snippets of it, and
it's too many characters to follow for you?
It gets a little difficult, because I do like to make sure that when a character comes into my mind, they are unique, they are personal. So when I read a play, I start off the first act a little slower, because in my mind it's like, okay, this will be Josh. I'll have Josh be this character in here, and so I'll have you pictured off as this one person.
Do you seriously cast your friends when you're reading things
I find it helps out in my mind, especially when it's something like I'm trying to read a play.
Huh.
It makes it a lot easier for me to keep track of who is who.
I've never heard of anyone doing that, though.
What's the thing is, I could just be reading as a name, and so it's Mr. Hart. And what kind of person is Mr. Hart? If I don't read the whole thing in one go, I might not be able to remember. Mm-hmm. Whereas in this case, the role of Mr. Hart will be played by my friend and co-podcaster Joshua Treleaven. And so in that case, I just picture you in whatever outfit is necessary for the role.
Great.
And then
fun.
It helps out.
Yeah.
It adds a personal touch to it. And that way it's just like having fun with friends a little bit, just goofing off.
Yeah, well, I might actually have to, next time I read a play, I might have to actually work and cast my friends in it.
Go find a little bit of Shakespeare.
Yeah, I might pick a Shakespeare play and just do that.
Although, if you really want to have some fun, I must recommend The Country Wife.
Okay.
It's very nice wordplay, especially for its age. And in the first act, and I quote you on this verbatim, they do have the line, "What ho, whoremonger?" And, that line is just a line I said, I've got to remember this one forever, because that's a line you just want to drop off with your friends sometime.
No, I might have to bleep that out, actually. I'm not sure.
No, it's just like what ho and good fortune, and then, the one guy's called a whoremonger because he is a licentious man who is known for having many dalliances with women, both available and unavailable. So,
It doesn't explain the monger part.
Well, it's like fishmonger.
Yeah.
So it's a man who deals with fish and sells them. This man would be a whoremonger in the way that, he deals in, it's like a normal man would deal, buy and sell fish for trade.
So he's a pimp.
No, in this case, he's more of he just has a lot of action.
I think whoremongers probably means pimp, but...
Well, that's the thing, is they're basically comparing him to something like that, but it's a really good turn of phrase, and that's the line, you're insulting somebody, you want to drop a line like that. You damn whoremonger, get out of here. And that's the sort of thing wow, I have not heard somebody call me that one before. People remember you when you use a line like that. And yet, it's a line that's the word itself is so like unused. I don't think it needs to be bleeped out. I think it's something that is.
I was kidding about that.
Well, so that's the thing is like if everyone was dropping this line, maybe it'd be like the B word, the C word, the F bombs that get dropped.
Yeah.
And you can't use it. But you know what? That's a fairly unique one. You use that, people say, "Oh, do you remember that time you called him a whoremonger?" And so and that's why I recommend The Country Wife. Very good wordplay and some lines that'll just make you giggle when you hear it. It's like, oh, I can't believe they were using insults like that in amongst their friends 500 years ago. So yeah, Shakespeare's good, but if you want to have some fun with your friends, put them in onto The Country Wife. There you go.
All right, cool.
So yeah, I think each one has their point, but I do have to say I do prefer Cowboys.
Okay, well, yeah, I suppose we're
just about out of time on this.
We're just about out of time for the podcast.
So have I been able to sway you? It's not as though Knights aren't without the redeemable factions, but the Cowboys, we're completely regarding the power of firearms here over melee.
Yeah,
weapons.
disregarding the fire, I don't even care. Well, I think that was a point in the Knights' favor that they didn't need guns, but despite that, I think they still don't.
I think though in many of the stories with the Cowboys, the use of firearms wasn't seen as like I shoot everyone now because I got guns. They had to work with a 6-shooter. You can fire 6 and then you got to reload. You're out unless you've got a lot of guns on you. You're going to run out of bullets.
That's true. Guns still had their
restrictions. And so the actual ability to utilize a gun and fire where you want, let's face it, the accuracy wasn't what it is today, meant you have to be skilled. So at least had that sense of respect that being, like proficient with, like a sword was. It's like, yeah, you can hold up the ace of spades and shoot the ace of spades out of a card, like a guy across the street. It was a trick, for sure, but it was a trick that showed you had skill and you took the time to practice this.
Mm-hmm.
And in some of the more fantastic ones, you can show discipline this way. I remember the anime series Trigun, a great series. I've been told the manga's even better, but the anime is nice, and it shows his skill and his speed by him practicing. He'll put like an egg on the front of his gun, and he'll lower it and bring it back up again without breaking the egg. The egg won't have enough time to move to drop down and shatter. That's how quick his reflexes are. And so it shows, he's really good at it. But you know what? It also shows his skill and dedication because he's taking the time to become this good at it, where he can rest an egg on the end of his gun, put it down to his side, and then back up again without disturbing the egg enough for it to shatter or hit the floor. And so that shows, like what's otherwise seen as a comedic character, this is a man who has skill and patience. And so what you'd ordinarily see in modern day stuff is guns as being cheap ways to just kill and hurt other people. In the country and western genres sort of thing, it does require skill, and that is reflected. So I don't think guns should be seen as the cheap way as you see them in many other genres. I see them as a parallel to actually being proficient with your sword and shield and lance and whatever you're using in the Knights.
Okay.
So they're equal. They're equal, and that's why they're equal in that case. So we can just disregard, I just shoot the Knight, that's why I win. Haha. So there we go. But
all right. Yeah, well, no, I still think I think I like the Cowboy stories better. I think they're, for some reason, I think the Cowboy stories, maybe I haven't read enough Knight stories. Maybe I need to read a bit more on that. So I'm not saying never read. I'm not saying...
If you can find an old classic that involves like a knight trying to redeem himself, read it. If you like it, let us know. How can they let us know, Josh?
Recommendations, send us email, thesimulationist@gmail.com. Post a little comment on our Facebook page, facebook.com/thesimulationist. There's also a YouTube channel. There is a place to comment there. We do read those too. If you want to read, post something at youtube.com/thesimulationist.
That the entire world can see.
Yes, yeah. Well, anybody who searches and looks at The Simulationist will see those. And we're also on Stitcher. We're also on rpgpodcast.com. You can download us on iTunes. You probably already found us on iTunes. Most people do.
Unless you wandered in through, how did I get in this section of YouTube?
What else? If you happen to find us on iTunes, leave us a review. Give us however many stars you feel we deserve.
+1.
+1.
We need the help.
I don't think they can give us 6, but...
Well, then they just review us twice, 5 stars and 1 star. No, wait, don't.
And any place on the blog page, there's a little spot to leave comments. Any place you can, I will look. I always look at all those places. I can't guarantee I'll respond, but I probably will.
Try.
Actually,
We'll try.
So don't throw away your knight stories. Don't throw away your books full of stories about knights and chivalry. But
as I said, you want a more complex character.
Yeah.
The knight is the way to go. All too often the cowboy winds up getting a stranglehold into just a certain, archetypes.
Yeah, so in our judgment, the Cowboys win, though.
The Cowboys win, but there is room for improvement. It's not a domination sort of thing.
Sure.
So there we go.
Yeah, I guess, are we all wrapped up then?
I think that's about good for this week.
Okay, no more thoughts. Have a happy holidays for those of you who are celebrating holidays, Christmas, and all those things.
And if you're listening to this in the future, celebrate again. Maybe you're listening to this, say, summer of 2014. Celebrate. Get yourself a copy of the New Player's Handbook.
Oh, yeah,
Or,
New Player's Handbook.
I suppose they're keeping the same name. I haven't heard if they're changing the names.
The, what, D&D? Oh, the
books.
3 books.
Yeah,
Boy,
I think it's going to be the Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, or Monstrous Manual. That one has differed a little bit over the iterations for them.
Yeah, it has, so it's...
but by and large, Player's Handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide, and I think it'll keep on that way, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, I have been Josh Trevon.
I've been Ryan Kirkby.
Send us money.